What's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith at GSD Studios, and welcome to another Jim and Jay show. So who the hell are Jim and Jay? Jim and Jay are my personal health, fitness, nutrition, biohacking, overall life optimization mentors. These are by far the two biggest badasses that I've ever met in this space. I don't know anybody when it comes to these topics, you guys, that's more knowledgeable. So we created this show for our GSD mode listeners to have an opportunity to go out there and submit your questions here to the show. If you have any questions you want answered on the show, shoot us an email at jimandjay@gsdmode.com, and we will do our best to answer all your questions here live on the show. Also, real quick, want to plug our sponsor that makes this show possible is www.checkd.com/TRT Revolution. So on the show, Jim, Jay, and I talk a lot about getting your blood work done, checking all your different levels, your hormone levels, making sure that your body is operating at its most optimal self, right? So that is the company that Jim, Jay, and myself all use. So again, www.checkd.com/TRT Revolution. So let's jump on into the show. All right, what's up, our peeps? Joshua Smith here in GSD Studios with my personal health, fitness, energy management, biohacking mentors, Jim Brown and Jay Campbell, with another Ask Jim and Jay show where every single week you guys ask your questions and we answer them here live on the show. So any questions that you have, shoot those to us at jimandjay@gsdmode.com. So Jim and Jay at gsdmode.com, and we'll answer any question. We don't care what the question is, but we'll answer it, and at least to the best of our ability or the best of their ability to go out there and do that. So today, though, we wanted to take a different angle on the show and not answer questions, but cover two big topics that we get a lot of questions on, the things that really apply to everybody. And we wanted to go deep in them because there's so many scammers out there. There's so much just misinformation. So today we're just going to go deep, you guys, on protein powders, so different pre-workouts, post-workouts, meal replacement protein powders, but then also something that's massively important, which is how to read a label, right? There's a lot of, again, just hidden things out there, things that people aren't telling you. None of this stuff is regulated, so you have no idea if you're getting what you're buying, if you're getting junk with that. So that's what we're going to be covering today. So let's first, start with protein powders, and I guess with that, maybe we'll start with pre-workout, right? Go pre-workout, post-workout, then maybe we'll cover meal replacement in that order. So with pre-workouts, we've got two different styles. We've got maybe the person trying to put on a little bit of weight or just lose a little bit of weight. Then, of course, you got more of your endurance athlete. Let's talk about that. What are your guys' biggest recommendations for pre-workout for those two types of people out there? Maybe start with you, Jim.
My recommendations have always been the same. And even when we were talking, when I was helping out consulting for professional mountain bikers, distance athletes, guys who would run rim to rim in Arizona, swimmers, rowers, or guys going to the gym. It's always going to be complex carbohydrates and protein 60 to 90 minutes before you work out. And then depending on how long that activity is, possibly nutrition during the workout or the event, and then some type of post-recovery meal or shake or supplement. And so for me, that was always something like, I just rediscovered sweet potato powder. So I've been mixing that with my protein pre-workout and post-workout. It's amazing. I forgot, that's one of those little secrets that I've had forever, and I kind of forgot about and switched back to oatmeal. But works really well on my body. I have a couple friends now that are runners doing the same protocol where they're doing a complex carbohydrate from sweet potato powder and a whey protein 90 minutes before they run. And as expected, performance is increased. Recovery after post-workout is increased. Energy level throughout the whole event is better. And I recommend that. The ratios are going to be a little bit different if you're a bodybuilder versus a runner. Of course, it's going to be based on body weight, but it's always going to be the same. You want aminos and complex carbohydrates in your bloodstream pre-workout. And then post-workout, depending if you can get to a meal and eat a meal fast enough, or I still, I work out very rough. I mean, Jay knows I blast through my workout. I go really fast. I'm on the verge of dry heaving, literally throughout my workout, get it done. I blast through it. And I usually can't eat solid food for a little while. So I hit another shake that consists of the same thing, complex carbohydrates and protein. And then usually I eat within 2 hours after that. But that's the protocol that I've used on every type of athlete that I've ever consulted in, and it's worked fantastically.
You got any input on that, Jay? I mean, what as far as what you like?
Well, I'll just use it to like me now, because we're dieting or have been dieting, for the body painting this coming weekend. And, I've been dieting like for 4 weeks, and I've drawn my body fat significantly, but and I haven't even told Jim this, but something today just like hit me because I'm like really low on carbs. But now I'm at a point where my body, like physiologically, I'm developed. I have so much muscle. I'm right now probably like 6 or 7% body fat and 216 pounds, a little under. And I've never been this muscular and this lean, I don't think, in my whole life. Like I think the leanest and most muscular I ever was like 211, So it's like I'm 5 pounds heavier than I've ever been. And I realize now that you cannot drive your carbohydrate or your insulin signal so low and expect to actually be able to recover enough to power through your workouts. So it's like today I realized that there's just no possible way that I, at this size and my muscularity and leanness level, can literally go without carbohydrates and train at the intensity that I need to train. So I totally agree with Jim. It's weird though, because when I was lighter, and this is obviously going back pre-testosterone too, I think my maximum natural weight ever was about 188 pounds. I think I was like, 6'1" and a half and about 188, maybe 190. I don't know. And I was lean, I had a 6-pack, but, obviously I'm now 20 to 25 pounds heavier. And again, 20 years or 16 to 20 years later, training wise. So obviously much more muscle density and, neurological efficiency from training over time. But it just was weird. It kind of dawned on me this morning. Like I felt, obviously I'm training at, Jim's workout now, which is incredibly productive. The higher rep ranges, total muscle failure. And I just felt like I was going to die. I was doing like, these, the rows or what is it called, Jim, where you tighten up with your traps and then you do the rows to finish. And I did like 3 sets of them, and I thought I was going to die. And it was just like, I looked at Monica, she's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "I need more carbs, man." I mean, so the reality is that, depending on your leanness and your muscularity, how long you've been training, you definitely do need carbs pre-workout. Obviously, if you're trying to, restore and recover, you need them post-workout too. I have not myself yet experimented with the sweet potato powder, but Jim's raving about it. I mean, obviously I love sweet potatoes. I know how they work in the body. They are like magic. Your body does really utilize them really well. So I just think personally, you definitely need pre and post-workout carbs. Hopefully we can develop our own supplement, with Optimized Life Nutrition that can take advantage of that post-workout, recovery window and do it in a way that like everybody can utilize.
So when it comes to pre and post workouts, because you get, and I know that you've trained a lot of people in this arena, and I currently train people in this arena right now, Jim, with, you guys are hitting the gym, right? Like you're going into the health club, hitting the gym for your, 45 minutes in and out. But you got some of these guys that are out there running, 14 miles in a day. These long endurance athletes, right? Which I'm guessing your pre and post is massively different. And like when I had our good friend Russ on the show, it was just shocking at how many of these marathon runners and triathletes end up with just massive heart issues. But because, they're slamming in all these carbs, they're slamming in negative food, in a bad way, not doing it in a healthy way. I don't know if it's the running that's so hard on them or the diet that they're doing in between times. What are some of the things with your endurance athletes that maybe you recommend them to do pre and post, so they don't have those negative issues that we see?
One of the things that I was just talking to my buddy who I'm currently helping, he's a runner, as I mentioned. One of the things that I like to kind of ask and discover is what their understanding of glycogen levels are. The classic, and people still do this, the classic night before the run, hey, I'm going to go eat a massive pasta dinner so I can load up on carbohydrates. And so that's the first thing that I ask and kind of diagnose and see if they understand what that's all about. And I was even talking to a fitness guy last night. He was telling me about his peak week and his prep for this the show, and no idea how glycogen gets loaded into your body and what's needed. I mean, it just blows my mind. But anyway, as I uncover that and see what their understanding is, if you're a normal guy, like my buddy is, normal guy, and he's working out a little bit, does some CrossFit and stuff, but he's not in a negative caloric balance by any means. He is dieting. He's lost some body fat, but not really. Body fat's not really flying off of him. If he sees something, he'll eat it, but he's cut down from what he was eating, so he's losing body fat. But for all intents and purposes, he's not walking around with empty glycogen stores. And so if I was to estimate based on his activity, is probably, he's not spilling over every day, but he's probably 75, 80, 85% full of the stored glycogen in his muscles and liver every day. And so if he's going to run the next day and have this big carb meal the night before, yeah, you're going to fill up your glycogen stores. You're going to spill over. The rest of it's going to be stored as body fat. You're going to get a massive insulin release and dump. And I think that that's part of this cycle that gets set up, or at least it was. I'm not sure if everybody thinks that way, but that's part of that endurance athlete kind of thinking. So you don't have to load up and spill over the night before. That's why pre and intra workout nutrition is so important. And so this guy, I was with him the night before. He didn't eat a lot of carbohydrates. We actually ate some chicken wings. And so he was probably waking up in the morning, with a above average, like I said, 75 to 80% glycogen was full, ready for the run. I had him do the pre-workout drink, which was 40 grams of protein and 35 grams of carbohydrates from the sweet potato powder, which is a complex carbohydrate. And so that does a couple things. That throws glucose and aminos into his bloodstream when he starts to work out. The carbohydrates stop the proteins from being broken down, and you get an energy source out of them. And so you're not even tapping into your glycogen stores likely for the first 40 minutes, depending on how much is in that pre-workout meal. But so let's say his run took an hour and a half to do. So after that 40 minutes of him burning through whatever he ingested, then he's probably got 30, depending on intensity, 30 to 40 minutes of glycogen to burn through before he goes into breaking down proteins and or fats. And so the general rule of thumb is when you're doing an endurance type of activity like that is start to consume calories after about 40 minutes. That's if you don't eat before or you don't have carbohydrates slowly trickling in your bloodstream. So with all that, with this scenario that I'm laying out, he doesn't have to start consuming calories 40 plus maybe 30 minutes, so 70 minutes into his run. At that point, yeah, he could do some simple sugars, maybe even a supplement that had honey and MCT oils in it, something like that, what body could use as fast energy sources without bombing himself with insulin, without spilling over, without pouring in hundreds and 150, 200, 300 grams of carbohydrates into his body. That's not possibly going to be used at the time. So if he's taking in small amounts of carbohydrates until he finishes his race, then you end the race. You don't have a massive insulin signal. You don't have a massive insulin dump. You certainly haven't filled up your glycogen levels and spilled over. And so I think that's cardiovascularly a much safer way to do it. Then, of course, afterwards, you're going to have another meal, or you can do another protein shake. But the meal is going to consist of complex carbohydrates and protein. And that's going to go back to giving you immediate cellular energy, stop any catabolic state that's going on. You're going to stop any protein synthesis or any protein breakdown, start to feed yourself with a slow influx of complex carbohydrates. So you're not going to get a massive insulin dump again, and you slowly build up your glycogen levels, and that's going to help your recovery. And again, goes with our whole lifestyle of low insulin lifestyle. And I think that's where a lot of those guys go wrong and have these massive carbohydrate influxes, and then, resulting, you get a massive insulin dump. You do that daily or however often you train for years on end. Yeah, man, you're going to fuck up your cardiovascular system.
Yeah. And then the only thing I would add, Josh, is, I just had, I sent it to, your guy that's recruiting for podcasts. I sent Paul just his information to him today because I think he's going to be in Phoenix. He should definitely come into your studio. You guys can get seriously deep on ketogenic dieting. One of the things that Paul talked about is that, again, we're talking about energy systems. The average person that does endurance doesn't understand what's going on. Okay. They've been told the mantra is you got to load on carbohydrates, as Jim just, gave a very elaborate discussion, and you got to pound, your muscle glycogen stores to be over full so that you can support the training and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of data that's coming out now that, and this is what Paul was talking about, that the top distance runners that performed the highest at the Olympics this year, which were from South Africa, are all on ketogenic diets. Okay, every single one of them. So they're, and again, I'm not trying to change the topic here, but, as Jim said, I'll just say this. The average person that does endurance training overloads on carbohydrates. What happens when you overload on carbohydrates? You whack your insulin signal. You start to wear out. Remember, think of that swinging door hinge. You start wearing out your chemoreceptors in the pancreas over time because you're overwhelming your body with insulin production. Again, depending on your natural insulin sensitivity, your natural body type, you're doing damage. You're causing massive inflammation. So it's not a good thing if you're an endurance or ultra endurance athlete to be pounding 1,000 grams of carbs a day in and day out for years on end. I mean, it's gonna lead to bad stuff. And just to answer your question, Josh, because I know you just had Russ, and Russ is a fountain of knowledge and resource. We love Russ. I think it's a combination. Again, me, running will lead to life in a wheelchair. But the reality is that the human body, biomechanically, okay, kinesiologically, was not designed to run shearing forces. I mean, I don't have research to give you this right now, but the running and the movement and all these things it's doing, it's causing massive shearing force pounding on your soft tissues and joints. Most of these guys are running on hard surfaces. They're not running on, grass or asphalt, what do you call that? Rubberized asphalt. So over time, it does lead to wear and tear. And so it is a combination, this inflammation that's created from the insulin overproduction, and then just the massive damage that you're doing from the overtraining. Because most of those guys do overtrain. I mean, it's part of the job. It's part of the lifestyle. If you're competing in a 60-mile event, and I don't know what is running and what's swimming and what's climbing or whatever, but I mean, you're destroying your central nervous system. Yeah. So again, you combine the central nervous system whack with the overproduction of insulin, and then the shearing forces that are taking part on your soft tissues. Of course, you're going to have issues medically over time. I mean, most of those guys are all, as Russ said, they all have heart issues because they've essentially overtrained themselves. They've dropped their testosterone to the floor. Their central nervous systems are depressed. They don't sleep. They've chronic insomnia. So a lot of those guys are seriously a medical wreck, a train wreck.
Yep, love it, man. So I've also heard you guys mention in the past certain things like for endurance athletes, like other things like beet powders, also pomegranate. I don't really know much about either of those. Is that something for everybody? Is that something more for endurance athletes?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm kind of looking into now is beetroot powder and its effects on nitric oxide levels in the body. We talk about taking a low dose Cialis for that exact reason. A lot of the pre-workouts that people like to or have things like beta-alanine and L-arginine dose pretty large in them because of the same effect again. And so there's a couple different ways to go about it. The beetroot powder is a little bit interesting. There was a couple studies with kayakers that showed it did increase overall maximal performance. I think they measured VO2 max and it increased that. Plus, I think it's just a very healthy thing to take. If we could substitute our people and us by substitute Cialis for beetroot powder, I think overall that's a win. We talk about pomegranate extract and juice. We've talked about that forever. All of its benefits, including reversing arterial plaque. It's antioxidants across the whole spectrum. It affects in that overall vascular health. Collagen levels within vascularity, immunity support. It's an amazing supplement, and so I'm trying to look at maybe combining a product like that has something that increases nitric oxide levels and different benefits for the cardiovascular system. But the endurance guys are using that right now. Everybody seems to love it. The problem that I have is I'd like to measure nitric oxide levels with that supplementation versus something like an L-arginine, beta-alanine supplementation versus something like a Cialis dose. And so that's very difficult to do. And so, this kind of brings me back to the old drawing board of like, well, I took this and I felt like that, and I took this and I felt like that, and then spread it out to, the people that we trust as guinea pigs, and see if we can find some commonalities, within results from us. So I don't know, something interesting that we're looking into.
Yeah, so I love that, man. So with that kind of that stack, if you will, that you're talking about, is that an immediate pre-workout that if I was an endurance athlete, that I would take like with my protein and sweet potato powder, or is that like a first thing in the morning? Is that part of pre-workout, or is it totally separate?
Well,
let me answer that. So it depends, right? It's goal specific.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're training, for a marathon or ultra endurance, you could definitely take it in the morning. And if you're dieting, if you're a bodybuilder, like Jim and I, then it would be specifically, you would take it like pre and post, to flank your carbohydrates around your training.
Well, the beetroot powder specifically is very low calorie. Right. And so I would probably use it. I wouldn't want to put a stimulant with it, but I would probably use it pre-workout. And most of the endurance guys are using it immediate before event. And so the way I would use it, and the way that I would probably recommend endurance people to use it, is the same way. So you're still going to do your meal, whether that be a liquid meal or a solid meal, 60 to 90 minutes before the event, probably a liquid meal. I would hit the supplementation, the beetroot powder, immediately before, because that doesn't take a lot of fluid or volume. It mixes very well, and it fits into a smaller volume of liquid. I would do that pre. And again, it's hard to tell what the timing is on that, because I haven't experimented enough to say yes, effectively. Like I take a couple milligrams of Cialis, and within the hour I can feel the effects, or I take a beta-alanine, L-arginine, and within about 5 minutes I start to feel the effects. So have to play with that a little bit more as far as timing, but yeah, it's going to be a pre-workout when you want the most nitric oxide release. And then again, post-event, you're going to do some type of meal or supplementation, protein, complex carbohydrate supplementation again.
Love it. So let's talk about non-pre and post, just protein powders, right? Because you got this stuff. I know we've talked about this before in the show, but, you got these whey proteins, you got casein proteins. Is there a good mix? Because, I don't know, I get sick and tired of, having specific whey jugs, then having just specific casein jugs. Is there any type of mix that you guys recommend, of a mix of both? What do you recommend there, just for meal replacement throughout the day that meets our insulin control lifestyle that you guys talk about so much?
The best, if you're going to do a meal replacement type of protein mix, I think it's best to have a combination, a little bit of whey, a little bit of calcium caseinate, and possibly egg, all mixed together. That gives you kind of a different amino acid profile from each one. They both have different rates of release into your bloodstream, so it slows it down. You have a little bit of an immediate, a little bit of slow and medium releasing protein, so you have a constant slow influx of amino acids into your bloodstream. If it's going to be a true real meal replacement, then again, we're always going to recommend that you're going to have fat and carbohydrates with it. A complex carbohydrate would be best, like the sweet potato powder. I've used whole grain oatmeal for years. I dump oatmeal straight into my shake, but the thicker the protein, the nastier that gets. So that only really works with just straight whey, and then some type of fat. But the problem is when you go look at a shelf, or you go look at a protein powder or a protein product on the shelf, it's hard to determine what you're actually getting, because I don't know what the exact number is, but a high majority of everything they pick up off the shelf is a proprietary blend.
Right.
And when you start to look at proprietary blends, that's code word for you're getting screwed. It doesn't matter what company, how outstanding the people are, how much they tell you on the net that they're, a professor of this and that, and they're there for you, and they're, and then you look at the second ingredient behind the proprietary blend. Second ingredient in this clean product from this outstanding guy is dairy creamer, so it's imperative that you as a consumer start to become more educated and look at nutrition labels and start to figure out and decode what they mean. And so, one of the great tricks on a proprietary blend is, they have to, when you look at the ingredient list of a nutrition label, it has to have the ingredients in the largest amounts first. And so let's just say I had my whey protein powder that's sitting on my shelf. It's whey protein isolate. It has flavoring and whatever else, some type of filler, and that's it. If you look at something that you buy off the shelf and it's a proprietary blend. So let me back up a little bit. So in that scenario, I know that there's mostly whey protein powder. Then the next amount of ingredient in there is going to be the flavoring, and the least amount of ingredient is whatever we'll call it magnesium stearate. So when you look at a protein powder and it has a proprietary blend, so that's just like that proprietary blend, whatever's in the parentheses is going to take up the bulk. It's going to have the most amount of all the ingredients. However, in that proprietary blend, it doesn't have to be listed that way. So you could have, they always put in whey protein isolate because it's one of the most expensive, high end. Everybody looks for that. Everybody knows whey isolate is the best way. For our purposes, yeah, it's the best way. And then they might have calcium caseinate, and then they might have whey protein concentrate, and it's in that parentheses. So for all we know, it could be 99.5% whey protein concentrate, which is the lowest amount of protein yield per mass. So you're getting less protein in that. It's a lower grade protein. It could be 0.4% calcium caseinate, which is a higher grade protein, and then 0.01% of the whey protein isolate. And so that's a classic example, and it always works out that way, guys. It is never the opposite where you see a proprietary blend, it's 99% of the most expensive protein. It never works that way. If it was that way, they wouldn't list it in a proprietary blend. That's what a proprietary blend is for, to screw you over. There's no other reason. There's none. And so when you see that, I'd be very skeptical. And that's like the first rule. When I look at a protein source, I look at the label and see proprietary blend. I know it's not what I'm looking for.
That was a very long-winded answer, Josh, to your question. Let me jump in there. So first off, there is no MRP because the MRP, which is meal replacement powder or drink or whatever, is exactly as Jim said it is. It's made by a company that can't be trusted, that has proprietary blends inside it. And so you're playing a losing game by purchasing it. Now, I'll be the first guy to say on this show, and Jim can make fun of me for 10 years because he knows that I'm the guy. I have been using Muscle Milk. I've been using Muscle Farm Combat Powder. I've been using all the cheap shit that you buy at Costco. It makes sense because you have a lot of servings. And I'm not going to lie, Muscle Farm Combat Powder, cookies and cream taste amazing. I love to mix that shit in almond milk and throw it on my cereal when I eat cereal, which isn't a lot, but when, I'm not trying to be ripped or anything, I eat it. And it tastes awesome. But, Jim's right. I mean, this is where we get into the philosophical discussion of why is our supplement company going to blow up in the marketplace and just kick ass and dominate? Because we're not going to put any kind of proprietary blends in any product that we manufacture. We're not going to have anything that says, here's 10 super names that are like trending on Google right now of like top, natural, alternative health supplements, and throw them into a blend and say, wow, this is productive and efficacious. It's a scam. I mean, it's just like Jim said. I mean, literally, if you guys watching this show right now knew what was in the products that you've been purchasing for literally decades, you would be appalled. You would probably want to sue. I mean, it's unbelievable. There is no regulation in the supplement space. Some of the most famous guys in the nutrition industry, bodybuilding, the supplement space, whatever, the people that are at the Olympia shows with their $250,000 and $300,000 boosts are ripping you off, man. And they've been ripping you off for decades. So the reality is that we are entering this space with a motto and a goal of 100% transparency and authenticity. We are not going to sell you anything that we cannot verify 100%. And again, we ask you guys to do it, I mean, we'll provide you a lab, an independent lab, send it and test it. We're not going to have any nonsense, any scandal, any just the stuff that's out there now where it's, again, proprietary blends. They can't back up their claims. There's nobody testing it. So we're going to do it ourselves. But to answer Josh, I don't know of anything. Jim's right. I mean, you'd almost have to take a multi-spectrum blend of calcium, probably egg albumin, and some WPI, whey protein isolate, and throw in, as Jim said, a powder like a sweet potato powder or cyclic dextrin or something like that. Paul Burgess was talking about a new form of carbohydrate. I can't remember what it's called, super or something. But technology is expanding. Things are getting better. They can look at things at a molecular level, better and better on a daily basis now. So I'm sure there'll be better carb sources that will come around. But hey, man, it's a great product to manufacture. There's something out there now, or that's something that we should really look into. I really think that there's a space for somebody to have something that's instantaneous, right? Because everybody wants convenience. Yeah. They want the instant gratification, but the instant gratification now is bars and all that stuff, and it's crap. It's like eating candy bar.
It's almost, I treat my meal replacement or my protein shakes almost like my food, man. I buy single source ingredients, right? Sometimes I'll buy a mix of protein, but that's a mix that I ordered from the manufacturer. Sometimes it contains, 33% calcium caseinate, 33% egg, 33% whey. But for the most part, I always take my protein and my carbohydrates and manually mix them, whether that be in my shaker bottle or I'm making to-goes in Ziploc bags. And then I add, because depending on the day, some days I have 60 grams of carbohydrates in my shake. Most days I have about 25. And so it's dependent and it depends on your body weight. And so it's really difficult for us or any company to come out with a meal replacement powder that's going to fit everybody and be happy, make everybody happy. But for the most part, if we come out with a protein, it'll probably be a mix. It'll be a mix that'll be very transparent, and it'll be one of the very few companies that you can look on the protein label and we're going to do the math for you. So that means if there's a serving size, it'll show you one scoop as a serving size of, let's just say 30 grams. And we have, that contains 27 grams of protein. I want you, the consumer, to also see exactly what the actual percentage of protein that is. And so you can do the math. We can do a program sometime where I have, like a slide prepared, or we can do it on a blackboard and, an imaginary label. And I can show you how to do the math to figure out what the percentage of protein is that you're getting in your servings. That's what I did to Jay, with his Muscle Farm and his whatever it was versus, the company I use, and proved that it actually was cheaper to buy your protein from my company. But that's what I want. I want the consumer to be able to look at our product and have absolutely 100% transparency. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But at least when you buy the product, I want you to know exactly what you're paying for and exactly what you're buying. And, as you guys know, the nootropic that we have, everything's broken down on it. The only thing that we didn't put in exact milligrams was there was 2 fillers that were used in the capsule. And I have the amounts, and I'm going to make that, publicly available on the website. But when you do the math and add all those up, it's going to contain exactly how much the capsule weighs. And you also know the exact breakdown of what ingredients in there. It's going to be in actual clinical dosages. It's not some scam like, oh yeah, we have this product in there. That's the one that everybody recognizes should be in a nootropic. Oh, but it's, it's in a proprietary blend, so we don't know how much is in it. Or, yeah, it's 5 milligrams. When you read all the PubMed studies, it's 500 milligrams. So that's kind of where we're headed.
Yeah. When you break it down, it's like if I'm taking ibuprofen, right? I know exactly how much ibuprofen I'm taking. If it's a proprietary blend, I may not know if I'm getting, right? So with the supplements that we take for other aspects for health, I mean, we demand that. It's kind of weird that we don't demand it when it comes to our health supplements. So this is kind of maybe an odd or funky question, but like years ago, dude, this is, 6-7 years ago, we found this new vet who was all about the food that you feed your dogs, right? Imagine that, right? So she gives us this food. It's more expensive, but it's high quality. And we follow the serving size. And I go back to her, I'm like, dude, is this right? Like, I feel like I'm not feeding my dogs anything. And she goes, well, before, you were having to feed them double or triple because there's so much shit in their old food, right? This is such quality, better ingredients, so they don't need as much. So with that being said, because there's so much shit in a lot of these let's just say protein powders, and the supplement industry has always sold us of every 2 hours, you need X amount of protein, 1 pound per body weight. Is that kind of the same thing as like my dogs? like if I'm eating true, clean, pure ingredients, do I really need to be slamming in that much protein like we've been sold that story of?
Well, there's something about eating. That's why, I was always on Jay for buying those low quality, what I consider low quality protein supplements. For instance, the whey isolate I use is 97% whey. So you get 97% protein yield per gram, right? So it depends on the manufacturer. That can go down to 88%. If you're talking about whey protein concentrate, there's two different grades of concentrates that are typically used. One's 34% protein. That means, you would have a serving size of like an 80-gram scoop to get 20 grams of protein. And then there's another grade of whey concentrate that's popular. It's 80-some%. And what manufacturers typically will do will take those and mix them together in a specific way. So you're getting, 50, 60% yield. That way you don't have like a 50-gram scoop and getting, 22%. And they kind of hide it better that way. And so, yeah, I mean, that's not disclosed on the label. That's why there's that kind of crew out there in bodybuilding that says, oh, real food is so much better. Well, yeah, if you're using crap supplements and you're getting God knows how much protein in it versus a chicken breast, absolutely, man. And to go back on the vet story, a long time ago, I had a dog that was getting fat and she wasn't eating very much food. And so, I take a look, and I don't know how I could have let this slip, but I take a look at the ingredients in the food. First ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. Second ingredient, some kind of crap grain. There wasn't even a meat product in this thing. It just guaranteed that you had like 10% protein and the rest was fat and sugar. Oh, it didn't even list how much sugar you had. So I was literally feeding my dog crap. Nothing that a dog should be eating at all. And so of course, health is going to hell, getting fat, and addicted to the food. But yeah, man, it's in everything that we eat or consume, literally. And I was just talking about this today. Anything that comes in a box is literally produced to screw you over. And I stand by that, man. It's a researched product to screw you over and get you addicted so that you eat more. And evidently your health goes to shit.
Yeah.
So is there anything else when we're reading these nutrition labels outside of, when we're talking about, or you've elaborated on calculating protein, is there anything else people should look at? I know, you talked about ingredients and if you can't pronounce it and if there's a laundry list, stay away, things like that. But one thing that seems to also be hidden so much is sugars. I've heard things, and if you fact check me, I could be way off here, but it's something like there's 28 or 9 different ways that they classify sugar, whether it's sugar, alcohol, whatever. So it'll look like, oh, there's only 3 grams of sugars, but then they'll just have this big other category, right? So when we're looking at labels, is there anything else that's important that people should be really looking at with labels? What is common for the supplement or food industry to kind of bury and hide shit in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the bars, oh, sorry, Jay. A lot of the bars and some of the protein powders too, they have sugar alcohols in them. They have glycerol in them. And those are all things that just on a high level, I don't want to go into the biochemistry of them, but just on a high level, those do not act great in your body and they will lead to you putting on fat. It's not like a clean carbohydrate. And so, again, that's why I'm a proponent of you reading the ingredient, not so much the nutrition breakdown. That's important, but the ingredients is where you start to uncover what's going on, the fuckery that's involved. And the FDA just made it legal so that you don't have to list high fructose corn syrup anymore. It can be listed as fructose. I mean, that's just for instance, we all see fructose and we think, okay, fruit sugar. Nope, wrong. Corn sugar, high concentrated corn sugar. But that's, again, of how it's all kind of scripted against you, the consumer. And so I highly recommend, and I've done this for years and I still do it on the labels that I can still read. But, some of these, you pick up a bar or something and there's ingredients I've never even heard of. And so you got a smartphone, start to look them up. And it's appalling, man. That's why so much of what we talk about, and, you might call me old school or whatever, but it's just go back to whole food, man. It's one ingredient. You eat a sweet potato, goddamn well what you're getting. If you buy a sweet potato powder even, I mean, it's one ingredient, and if they put flavoring in it, I mean, it's simple. It's low ingredient foods and supplements. I mean, I think that's the easy way out, And what I've always said, you don't have to be an expert in all these names and chemicals and food ingredients if you eat meat and vegetables and if man made it, don't eat it. I mean, that it comes back to that, because you can't stay ahead of all these tricks that are going on. It's very difficult, with this fruit.
Well, let me just add some stuff to what he just said. So again, whenever we talk about anything, when it's about nutrition, it's always, goal dependent and rate specific, right? So if you're a fat person and you're trying to lose body fat, you have got to obviously massively reduce your insulin signal. And as Jim said, a lot of these foods, as Josh, you already repeated, that have these chemicals like sorbitol or glycerol or mannitol or these sugar replacements, those things are known to elicit an insulin response. So a lot of those things will tell you that there's no calories from sugar and 8 calories from sugar alcohols. Okay. Or 8 grams. And that stuff will definitely spike your insulin. Now, it's not going to spike it like eating, 100 grams of licorice will, but it's definitely going to create an insulin signal. And if you are fat and you have poor insulin sensitivity already, it's not helping you. Okay. Especially in your battle to lose, additional body fat and get yourself functionally stronger and leaner, as you age. So you definitely have to be really, really careful when you're eating these type of foods. And as Jim said, almost every bar, every processed food or packaged or stored food has those things in it. And it's really, really hard. And then, it comes back to, again, the meal prep. Are you diligently avoiding eating those type of foods, the ready-made foodstuffs that are just instantly available at every gas station and Circle K and usually in your pantry? So it's hard, especially with kids. Our kids are eating those things. That's the thing that me and Monica are always talking about. I'm like a garbage disposal. I walk around both of my daughters, they barely eat anything. It's incredible. They just don't eat. When we take them out to eat, I get one meal and they have to split it because they just waste food. But I mean, it's the same thing. I don't want to make them overeat. So it's harder when you have young kids, because, you want your young kids to eat well and responsibly, but at the same time, you got to get them to eat something, and some of them just don't eat. And so it's that's when you really have to be cautious, because they're always eating those kind of foods, and they're always left over. At least at my house, they are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I was just out this past week. Jay and I had a speaking event together, and on the drive home from LA to Phoenix, I stopped at the gas station. Didn't have time. I was in a time crunch. Didn't have time to stop and eat. So I'm like, screw it, I'll just grab a bar. Dude, when something tastes that damn good, it can't be good for you. Right? They taste, it's like a freaking Snickers bar on steroids. It's dude, you got to have some common sense. If it tastes that damn good, there's no way in hell it's good for you.
Well, there's a reason the guy, and I won't name his name. He and I know each other, but the guy that owns Quest is getting sued massively because those bars are candy bars. And there's been a lot of attorneys that have gone after him and lit him up with class actions, and he's just paying guys out. Now, thankfully, he's made a fortune. But, they are, dude. You're exactly right.
Just to be fair, that could be his manufacturing screwing him over. We don't know. But
I'm not throwing him under the bus, but I know that he's been challenged, and I know he's paid out. That's public record. So, but it's like Josh said, they taste like candy bars because they are candy bars.
Well, there's a few bars now that are coming out on the market that have, 3 or 4 ingredients like almond butter, oatmeal, dates. I've seen some of those, and that's,
Well, the pure food bars, Jim, those pure food bars are sold at Costco.
But then again, it's probably blowing you out on carbohydrates. So then you're back to square one. I need, when I'm eating a meal, I don't want just a carbohydrate with 10 grams of protein meal. I need to have 30, 40 grams of protein, and then depending on what I'm doing, 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrates. And so it's hard to make a bar out of oats, almond butter, and dates or honey, to meet those requirements. Because the minute you put protein content, even if it's concentrate or something, it starts to taste, not so good. But it's tough, man. It's tough to get a bar or anything like that because it's so easy to get and convenient, but it's not the right combination, man. It's never good.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story, everybody that's watching and listening, is just be cognizant of what you're putting in your body, pay attention, read the labels. and make sure you're not getting scammed, dude, right? I mean, take care of your health, but also your checkbook, right? So, all right, you guys, we're about out of time here. So if you have any questions that you want specifically answered on the show, shoot us an email, Jim and Jay at gsdmode.com. Make sure to go out there and check out trtrevolution.com. That's on that site. You guys are going to hear a lot more content like this. Jim and Jay are putting out almost daily content with other experts in the space that are really, really specific to a lot of the topics that we talk about in the show at a much more frequent and higher level. So make sure to check out trtrevolution.com. You can also download for a little bit longer. We don't know how long it'll be up, but you can download Jay's book right now for free on there. So go check that out. And Jim and Jay, as always, man, definitely appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks, brother.
Chad. Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys, we will see you next time. Peace.